The ships came without warning on a Tuesday morning in 2387. Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee on the bridge of the Earth Defense Station when the alarm started screaming. The massive alien vessels appeared in Earth's orbit like dark clouds, blocking the sun. Each ship was the size of a city, and there were 12 of them. "Sir, we have incoming transmission," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see her hands shaking as she worked the key. "Controls." "Put it through," Jake said. He set down his coffee cup and straightened his uniform. This was the moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. First contact with alien life. The screen flickered and showed a creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect. Its skin was dark green with silver markings. 4 eyes studied Jake with cold intelligence. When it spoke, the translation came through clearly. "I am Commander Vextai of the Galactic Enforcement Council. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You will submit to our authority within 72 Earth hours. Resistance will result in corrective measures." Jake stared at the alien commander for a long moment. Around the bridge, his crew waited for his response. Everyone in the solar system was probably watching this moment. The first words between humans and aliens would be remembered forever. "We respectfully decline," Jake said. Vextai's 4 eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. "You decline? Perhaps you do not understand. We have conquered 847 worlds. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Your choice is simple. Submit or die." "I understand perfectly," Jake replied. "And my answer remains the same. We decline." The alien commander leaned forward. "You have seen our ships. Your most powerful weapons are like stones thrown at mountains. Why do you choose death?" Jake smiled. "Because we're human. And humans don't kneel. Your species will learn obedience or be destroyed. You have 72 hours. The transmission ended. Amy Rodriguez turned to Jake. "Sir, our scans show their weapons are centuries ahead of ours. Their shields can stop. Nuclear weapons. What do? "We do what humans do best," Jake said. "We survive." Within hours, emergency broadcasts went out across Earth. The message was simple and came directly from President Helen Carter. "Citizens of Earth, we face an enemy that wants to make us slaves. We will not submit. All civilians are to evacuate to the designated underground shelters immediately. Military personnel will remain at their posts. This is not a surrender. This is preparation." The aliens watched from their ships as Earth's cities emptied. They saw humans loading supplies into underground bunkers and mountain caves. They saw military units taking positions that made no sense for defending against orbital bombardment. What they did not see were the secret launches happening from hidden bases around the world. Commander Vextai studied the reports from his intelligence. "Officers, they are hiding underground like animals. When the deadline passes, we will demonstrate our power. A few destroyed cities will make them surrender." "Sir," said his second officer, "their behavior is unusual. Most species either submit immediately or make desperate attacks on our ships. These humans are doing neither. They are primitives," Vextai said. "They will learn." On Earth, Jake Morrison stood in the command center, buried deep under the Rocky Mountains. The facility had been built in secret over the past 50 years, ever since humanity first detected alien signals from deep space. Around him, officers coordinated the greatest evacuation in human history. "All major cities are empty," reported Colonel Lisa Hayes. "Civilian population is at 97% safe in the shelters." "Good," Jake said. "What about the launches?" 37 ships got away clean," said Dr. Marcus Webb. "The aliens didn't detect them. Each ship has a full crew and everything they need to establish bases in other systems." Jake nodded. Humanity had learned long ago that putting all their eggs in one basket was dangerous. If Earth fell, humans would survive elsewhere. And if humans survived, they would fight back. The 72-hour deadline came and went. Vextai waited for humanity's surrender. Instead, he received silence. The planet below appeared dead. No communications, no signs of life in the cities. No response to his demands. Begin bombardment of the largest population centers, Vextai ordered. They will surrender when they see what happens to those who defy the Council. The alien weapons turned empty cities into glass. But from the underground shelters, humans watched and learned. They recorded everything. How the weapons worked, how the ships moved, where they were vulnerable. Because while the aliens thought they were fighting a war, humans knew they were. Just beginning one dot in the deep shelters, Jake Morrison addressed his people. They think we're beaten. They think we'll surrender now that they've shown their power. They're wrong. We're not surrendering. We're not running. We're going underground. And from there, we're going to teach them something about humans. We don't give up, ever. The real war was about to begin. 6 months after the invasion, Commander Vextai stood in his command center staring at reports that made no sense. His forces controlled every major city on Earth. His patrols moved freely across the planet's surface. Yet somehow, humans kept striking back from nowhere. Another supply convoy was attacked, reported his intelligence officer. 12 vehicles destroyed, all supplies stolen. No alien casualties, but all our equipment is gone. How many humans were involved? Vextai asked. Unknown. Sir, the attack lasted only minutes. By the time reinforcements arrived, the attackers had vanished. Vextai slammed his fist on the control panel. Vanished where? We have sensors covering the entire planet. Nothing moves without us knowing about it. What Vextai did not know was that Colonel Lisa Hayes was watching his ships right now through a hidden camera mounted in the ruins of Denver. She sat in a bunker 50 feet underground, surrounded by screens showing alien positions across the continent. Target confirmed, she spoke into her radio. Convoy moving east on Highway 76. 2 escort vehicles, minimal armor. 20 miles away. Captain Steve Carter received the message. He was hiding in an abandoned gas station with 12 other fighters. All of them carried weapons they had taken from previous raids. They had learned to move fast and strike hard. Copy that? Control. Moving to intercept. Steve led his team across the broken landscape. The aliens had turned most of the surface into a wasteland, but that worked in humanity's favor. Plenty of places to hide, plenty of cover for ambushes. The convoy appeared exactly where Lisa said it would be. 2 alien escort vehicles, protected. A line of supply trucks heading to the nearest alien base. Steve smiled. The aliens were so predictable. They always took the same routes, always used the same tactics. Remember, Steve whispered to his team, hit fast, grab what we can, then disappear. Don't try to destroy everything. Take what's useful and leave. The attack lasted 4 minutes. Human fighters appeared from hidden positions, disabled the escort vehicles with captured alien weapons, and stripped the supply trucks of everything valuable. By the time alien reinforcements arrived, the humans were gone, but they left something behind. A message written in English on the side of one truck. Thanks for the supplies. Humans. In his underground laboratory, Dr. Marcus Webb studied the alien technology his teams had captured. What he saw amazed him. The aliens were incredibly advanced, but their technology was also incredibly complex. Every device had dozens of safety systems and authorization codes. They're so afraid of their own weapons, Marcus said to his assistant, Dr. Kate Thompson. Look at this rifle. It has 17 different safety features. It won't fire unless it recognizes the user's genetic signature, confirms their authorization level, and checks with a central command system. Kate studied the weapon. So, if we can bypass these systems, then we can use their own weapons against them, Marcus smiled. And I think I know how. The breakthrough came when Marcus realized something simple. The aliens thought in terms of rigid systems and perfect control. They could not imagine anyone ignoring safety protocols or taking dangerous shortcuts. But humans did dangerous things all the time. Marcus removed half the safety systems from the alien rifle. Any alien engineer would be horrified at what he did. The weapon was now unstable and potentially dangerous to the user. But it worked. And it worked for anyone who picked it up. Kate, send word to all resistance cells. We can modify their weapons. It's risky and some of our people might get hurt, but we can harm everyone. While the scientists worked, Steve Carter was planning. Something bold. He had been watching the main alien base outside of what used to be Chicago. The aliens had a predictable routine. Every morning at exactly the same time, supply ships landed at the base. The ships were guarded, but not heavily. Steve had noticed something else. The aliens all looked similar to human eyes, but they could tell each other apart easily. Their security systems relied on recognizing specific individuals. But what if someone wore the right uniform and walked in like they belonged there? This is crazy, said Lieutenant Ben Thompson when Steve explained his plan. You want to just walk into their base? Why not? Steve asked. They're so sure of their security that they don't expect anyone to try something simple. They think we'll try to fight our way in with explosives and weapons. They're not expecting someone to just knock on the front door. The plan worked perfectly. Steve put on a stolen alien uniform, walked up to the base entrance, and simply joined a group of aliens entering the facility. Their security focused on keeping humans out, not on checking that every alien was supposed to be there. Once inside, Steve had access to everything. Computer terminals, supply schedules, patrol routes, even the personal messages that alien officers sent to their families. He spent 3 hours copying information before walking out the same way he came in. That night, resistance cells across 3 continents received detailed intelligence about alien operations. They knew where every patrol would be, when supply ships would arrive, and which bases were most vulnerable. Commander Vex Tai received reports of coordinated attacks, hitting 17 different targets simultaneously. Each attack showed perfect knowledge of alien operations. His intelligence officer looked terrified. Sir, somehow they knew exactly when and where to strike. It's like they had access to our communications. Impossible, Vex Tai said. Our systems are impenetrable. Then how do you explain this? The officer showed him a message that had been broadcast on all alien frequencies. It was in perfect alien language. Thanks for the base tour. Very informative. Humans. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Commander Vex Tai felt something he had never experienced before in 847 successful conquests. He felt afraid. These humans were not fighting like any enemy he had ever faced. They were not trying to win through superior force or advanced technology. They were winning by being unpredictable, by ignoring rules, by doing things that should be impossible. Underground, Jake Morrison received reports from resistance cells across the planet. Humans were not just surviving. They were learning, adapting, and fighting back. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had something the aliens could not understand or counter. They had the will to be free. The message came through the stolen alien communication system at 3 a.m. Dr. Kate Thompson was monitoring alien frequencies when she heard something impossible, a human voice speaking from another star system. This is Tony Silva, calling from Kepler 442b. If anyone can hear this, we made it. We're alive, and we're not alone. Kate nearly dropped her coffee. The escape ships that had launched during the invasion 6 months ago were supposed to establish hidden bases in nearby systems. But this was the first contact they had received from any of them. "Tony, this is Kate Thompson on Earth. We hear you. What's your status?" "Better than expected." Tony's voice came back after the light-speed delay. "The aliens have a mining operation here. Slave labor. Local species called the Zelfani. And Kate, you're not going to believe this. These aliens aren't the only ones who enslave other races. It's everywhere." Kate felt her heart racing. "What do you mean everywhere?" "The entire galaxy, Kate. The Galactic Enforcement Council rules. Over thousands of worlds. All of them conquered. All of them slaves. But here's the thing. The locals here have never seen anyone fight back. They don't even know it's possible." In the underground command center, Jake Morrison listened to the recorded conversation with growing excitement. Humanity's war was not just about Earth anymore. It was about something much bigger. "Get me Colonel Hayes," Jake ordered, "and Dr. Webb. We need to talk." When the team assembled, Jake played Tony's message. "People, we've been thinking too small. This isn't just about saving Earth. This is about liberating an entire galaxy." Dr. Marcus Webb leaned forward. "Jake, we're barely holding our own against one alien fleet. How can we take on their entire empire?" "Because we're not going to fight their empire," Jake smiled. "We're going to teach it to fight itself." On Kepler 442b, Tony Silva was learning just how different humans were from every other species in the galaxy. He worked alongside the Zelfani in the mines, pretending to be another slave while secretly studying their captors. The Zelfani were gentle creatures who looked like large, furry humanoids. They had been enslaved for over 200 years. In all that time, none of them had ever raised a hand against their captors. "Why don't you fight back?" Tony asked a Zelfani named Krell during their rest period. Krell looked confused. "Fight back? Against the Enforcement Council? That would be suicide." "Maybe," Tony said. "But slavery is suicide too. Just slower." "I don't understand," Krell said. "The Council has weapons we cannot match. Their ships control the skies. Resistance is impossible." Tony smiled. "Let me tell you about humans, Krell. We specialize in impossible things." Over the following weeks, Tony began teaching the Zelfani about human concepts they had never encountered. Ideas like freedom, rebellion, and the belief that some things were worth dying for. Most of the Zelfani thought he was insane, but some listened. Meanwhile, Dr. Kate Thompson was establishing the most important project in human history. Using captured alien technology and hidden transmitters, she was building a communication network that could reach across the galaxy. "The key is to stay hidden," she explained to her team. "The aliens monitor official channels, but they don't think anyone would be crazy enough to use their own equipment against them." Kate was right. The aliens never imagined that their conquered subjects would steal their technology and use it to coordinate resistance. The concept was so foreign to their thinking that they never looked for it. The first secret transmission went out to every human team, scattered across nearby star systems. The message was simple. Find the slaves, teach them to fight, show them that freedom is possible. On Kepler 442b, Tony Silva received Kate's message and knew it was time to act. He had spent weeks gaining the trust of the Zelfani workers. Now, he would see if any of them were ready to do something their species had never done before. "Krell," Tony said during the next rest period, "how would you like to see your children grow up free?" "That's impossible," Krell replied automatically. "Humans used to say the same thing," Tony said. "Then we stopped saying it and started doing it." The first act of rebellion on Kepler 442b was small. 3 Zelfani workers simply walked away from their posts and refused to return. Their alien overseers were confused. In 200 years, no Zelthani had ever done such a thing. "Return to work immediately," ordered the alien supervisor. "No," said Krell. It was the first time in his life he had said that word to an authority figure. The supervisor raised his weapon, expecting the Zelthani to immediately submit. Instead, Krell stood his ground. "Go ahead and shoot." "But shooting me won't make the others work harder. And tomorrow, more of us will refuse." The supervisor hesitated. Killing workers reduced productivity, but allowing defiance would spread. He chose to make an example and fired his weapon. Krell died standing up. What the alien supervisor did not expect was the reaction of the other Zelthani. Instead of returning to work in fear, they gathered around Krell's body. For the first time in their species' history, they felt anger instead of resignation. "Krell died free," Tony said to the gathering crowd. "He chose death over slavery. Now you have to choose. Will you honor his sacrifice by remaining slaves? Or will you honor it by becoming free?" The rebellion that followed was unlike anything the Galactic Enforcement Council had ever seen. The Zelthani had no weapons, no military training, no experience with violence. But they had something new, the human idea that freedom was worth any price. They didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like people who had nothing left to lose. They destroyed mining equipment, sabotaged alien vehicles, and simply refused to work. When the aliens brought in reinforcements, the Zelthani scattered into the wilderness and waged guerrilla war. Most importantly, they sent a message across the galaxy using the human communication network. The message was simple. The Zelthani are free. Freedom is possible. Join us. On dozens of worlds, other enslaved species heard that message. Species that had been conquered for centuries suddenly learned that resistance was not suicide. It was hope. Commander Vextai received emergency reports from across the sector. Rebellions were breaking out on world after world. Each rebellion used the same tactics, the same strategies, the same impossible human ideas about freedom. How is this spreading so fast? Vextai demanded. His intelligence officer looked terrified. "Sir, we think the humans have established some kind of communication network. They're coordinating resistance across multiple star systems." "Find that network and destroy it," Vextai ordered. "We've tried, sir. We can't locate it. They're using our own communication systems against us in ways we don't understand." For the first time in the Council's 1,000-year history, their empire was not expanding. It was beginning to crack. And at the center of every crack was a simple, dangerous human idea that beings should be free. The galaxy was waking up. And once awakened, it would never go back to sleep. Commander Rick Davis stood on the bridge of the first human-built starship to enter enemy territory. The vessel had been constructed in secret using captured alien technology and human engineering principles. Where alien ships were elegant and efficient, the human ship was rough and practical. It worked, and that was all that mattered. "Sir, we're picking up 17 different distress signals," reported his communications officer. "Looks like rebellions are happening across this entire sector." Rick smiled. "Then we're right on time. Set course for the nearest uprising. Let's see if we can help." The ship Rick commanded was not the only one. Over the past year, humans had built dozens of vessels using the alien technology they had captured and reverse-engineered. Each ship carried weapons, supplies, and most importantly, human advisors who could teach other species how to fight for freedom. On Earth, the resistance had evolved far beyond simple survival. Dr. Kate Thompson's communication network now connected hundreds of worlds. Her underground facility hummed with activity as coordinators managed simultaneous operations across the galaxy. "Zelthani rebellion is holding strong," reported one operator. They've taken control of 3 mining facilities and are requesting additional weapons. The Krillian uprising needs tactical support, called another. They're facing orbital bombardment and don't know how to respond. Kate studied the galaxy-wide situation map. Red dots showed active rebellions. Yellow dots indicated worlds where resistance was building, and green dots marked worlds that had achieved independence. The map was changing every day as more species joined the fight. "Send Rick's team to help the Krillians," Kate ordered, "and get me a direct line to Tony Silva. We need to coordinate the next phase." On Kepler 442b, Tony Silva had become something he never expected to be, a teacher of revolution. The Zelfani, who had once been slaves, now fought with the determination of humans. They had learned not just tactics and weapons, but the human mindset that made freedom possible. "The key is to never let them predict what you'll do next," Tony explained to a group of Zelthani fighters. "The Council thinks in terms of rules and procedures. They expect logical responses to their actions, so we give them illogical ones." Krell's son, who had taken his father's name in honor, raised his hand. "But Tony, how do we fight their spaceships? They still control the skies." "We don't fight their spaceships," Tony said. "We make their spaceships irrelevant. You can't govern a planet from orbit if there's nothing to govern." The strategy Tony described was pure human thinking. Instead of trying to match alien technology, they would make that technology useless. They would disappear underground, strike without warning, and turn every world into an endless guerrilla war that the aliens could not win. Lieutenant Sarah Kim piloted her stealth ship through the outer defenses of the Council's main command station. The ship was invisible to alien sensors because human engineers had modified it in ways that should have been impossible. They had removed safety systems, combined incompatible technologies, and ignored every engineering principle that aliens considered sacred. The result was a ship that barely held together, but could sneak past any defense. "Target in sight," Sarah reported. Beginning information download. Sarah's mission was not to attack the command station. It was to steal every piece of information the Council had about their own empire. Military positions, supply routes, political structures, even personal communications between commanders. All of it would be broadcast to rebel forces across the galaxy. The download took 6 hours. By the time alien security noticed the intrusion, Sarah was already gone, but the damage was done. Within hours, every rebel group in the galaxy would know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. Dr. Alan Brooks had been working on his project for over a year. Deep in the mountains of Colorado, he was building something that would change warfare forever. A quantum communication network that could not be detected, intercepted, or shut down by any known technology. Final test sequence initiated. Alan announced to his team, "If this works, we'll be able to coordinate operations across the entire galaxy in real time." The test was successful. Suddenly, human coordinators could talk to rebel leaders on hundreds of worlds simultaneously. Orders could be given, intelligence could be shared, and attacks could be coordinated on a scale that had never been possible before. The first galaxy-wide coordinated strike happened 3 days later. Commander Vex Tai was reviewing intelligence reports when the alarm started screaming. His communications officer looked panicked as reports flooded in from across the Empire. "Sir, we're under attack on 47 worlds simultaneously. All attacks began at exactly the same time." "That's impossible," Vex Tai said. "How could they coordinate across such distances?" "Unknown, sir. But every attack is using detailed intelligence about our operations. They know our patrol schedules, our supply routes, even our personal communications." Vex Tai stared at the battle map in horror. The attacks were not random. They were perfectly coordinated to cause maximum damage with minimum risk to the rebels. Supply depots were hit when they were most vulnerable. Patrol ships were ambushed at exactly the right moment. Command centers lost communication at precisely when they needed it most. "Sir," his intelligence officer said quietly, "I think the humans have built something we didn't think was possible. A real-time communication network spanning the entire galaxy." The implications hit Vex high like a physical blow. If the humans could coordinate operations across the galaxy instantly, then every rebel group could fight as part of a single, unified force. The Council's advantage of superior technology meant nothing if their enemies could outmaneuver them at every turn. "Get me the High Command," Vextai ordered. "We need to escalate this immediately." But the High Command was dealing with their own problems. Reports were coming in from every sector of the Empire. Rebellions that had seemed isolated and manageable were suddenly revealed to be part of a vast, coordinated resistance movement. The Council made a decision that would seal their fate. They decided to use their ultimate weapon, planet killers. If they could not control rebellious worlds, they would destroy them as an example to others. The first world to die was a small planet called Xerion. The inhabitants had declared independence 3 weeks earlier. The Council's response was swift and final. A single ship appeared in orbit and turned the entire planet into molten rock. The galaxy watched in horror as an entire civilization was murdered. But instead of breaking the rebellion, the destruction of Xerion had the opposite effect. It proved what humans had been saying all along. The Council ruled through fear and death, not law and justice. Lieutenant Sarah Kim received new orders while her ship was hidden in an asteroid field. "Sarah, we need you to broadcast something to the entire galaxy. Make sure every living being hears this message." The message Sarah transmitted was simple, but it changed everything. It was spoken by Jake Morrison himself, broadcasting from Earth to every world in the galaxy. "Citizens of the galaxy, you have just seen what the Enforcement Council truly is. They claim to bring order and peace, but they rule through murder and terror. The beings of Xerion died for the crime of wanting to be free. How many more worlds will die before you realize that freedom is not given by tyrants? It is taken by the brave. The humans of Earth call upon every enslaved species, every conquered world, every being who dreams of freedom. Rise up. Rise up now, before they come for your world next." The response was immediate and overwhelming. On 1,000 worlds, beings who had lived their entire lives in slavery looked up at the sky and made a choice. They chose freedom over safety, hope over despair, rebellion over submission. The galaxy had awakened, and it was angry. General Patricia Lee stood before the largest gathering of rebel leaders in galactic history. Representatives from over 300 worlds had gathered in the hidden asteroid base that humans had built in the empty space between star systems. The meeting was taking place through quantum communication, with each delegate appearing as a hologram from their home world. "The time for scattered resistance is over," Patricia announced. "Today we launch the final assault on the Galactic Enforcement Council. Every rebel force will attack simultaneously. Every enslaved world will rise together. This is not just another raid. This is revolution." The plan was ambitious beyond anything ever attempted. Instead of attacking individual targets, the rebels would strike at the very foundation of the Council's power. Communication networks, supply chains, command structures, and most importantly, the fear that kept enslaved populations submissive. On Kepler 442b, Tony Silva led the Zelfani in their final preparation. What had started as a small mining world, rebellion had grown into the sector's largest resistance force. The Zelfani had learned human tactics so well that they now taught other species how to fight. "Remember," Tony told the assembled fighters, "our job is not just to free our own world. We need to make sure the Council can never rebuild their empire. Every ship we destroy, every base we capture, brings freedom closer for everyone. Krell, the young Zelfani who had taken his father's name, stepped forward. Tony, you taught us that freedom is worth dying for. Today we fight not just for ourselves, but for our children and their children. The Zelfani will be free. The rebellion began at exactly the same moment across the galaxy. On hundreds of worlds, enslaved populations rose against their captors. Using weapons, tactics, and most importantly, hope that humans had given them, Commander Vextai watched his empire collapse in real time. Reports flooded in faster than his staff could process them. Rebellions that should have taken months to organize had erupted overnight. Slave populations that had been docile for centuries were fighting with the ferocity of cornered animals. "Sir, we've lost contact with the entire Outer Rim," his communications officer reported. 23 command stations are not responding. "How is this possible?" Vextai demanded. "We have been building this empire for over 1,000 years. How can it fall apart in a single day?" His intelligence officer provided the answer that chilled Vextai to his core. "Sir, the humans didn't just teach them how to fight. They taught them how to think. Every species is now fighting like humans. They're unpredictable, adaptable, and they refuse to surrender." Captain Ben Thompson piloted his ship toward the Council's Central Command complex. His mission was critical: broadcast the location and defenses of every major Council facility to rebel forces across the galaxy. The information had been gathered by human infiltrators who had spent months posing as alien workers. "This is Ben Thompson to all rebel forces," he transmitted, "sending you detailed intelligence on Council military assets. Use it well." The data Ben transmitted revealed something shocking. The Council's military was not as strong as everyone believed. Most of their power came from fear and the belief that resistance was impossible. When that fear disappeared, their actual military capabilities were inadequate to control a galaxy-wide rebellion. The decisive moment came when the Zelfani made a choice that would be remembered forever. They loaded their largest ship with explosives and aimed it directly at the Council's primary command station. The ship was piloted by volunteers, led by the young Krell. As they approached the massive alien structure, Krell transmitted a message that was heard across the galaxy. "This is Krell of the Zelfani. My father died on his knees as a slave. I die on my feet as a free being. Let all enslaved peoples know that freedom is possible. Let the Council know that we are not afraid." The impact destroyed the Council's central command and everything connected to it. Communication networks crashed, supply systems failed, and, most importantly, the carefully maintained image of Council invincibility was shattered forever. The psychological impact was immediate. Across the galaxy, alien commanders who had never faced real resistance suddenly found themselves fighting enemies who would rather die than surrender. Council forces began deserting, refusing orders, and in some cases, joining the rebellion. Earth, Jake Morrison received the news with mixed emotions. Victory was finally within reach, but it had come at a terrible cost. Millions of beings had died fighting for freedom that should have been their birthright. "Sir," Amy Rodriguez reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from Council forces on over 50 worlds. They want to negotiate terms." Jake considered the request carefully. Humans had started this war to defend their own freedom. Now they had freed hundreds of worlds and broken an empire that had enslaved the galaxy for a millennium. But victory meant choosing what kind of galaxy would replace the Council's empire. "Tell them we'll accept surrenders," Jake decided, "but only unconditional surrenders. Any Council force that lays down their weapons and releases their slaves will be treated fairly. Anyone who continues to fight will face the consequences." Dr. Kate Thompson was coordinating the biggest intelligence operation in galactic history. Using the quantum communication network, she was ensuring that every rebel group knew which Council forces had surrendered and which were still fighting. The important thing now is to make sure this never happens again, Kate explained to her. Team, we need to build something better than what we're tearing down. The end came faster than anyone expected. Within weeks of the coordinated uprising, the Galactic Enforcement Council ceased to exist as a functioning government. Their military scattered, their leadership fled, and their empire fragmented into hundreds of independent worlds. But the most important change was not political or military. It was philosophical. The human concept of freedom had spread across the galaxy like a virus. Species that had accepted slavery for thousands of years now understood that they had a choice. They could be ruled, or they could rule themselves. Commander, Vextai found himself a refugee on a distant world, hiding from the very species he had once enslaved. He had lost everything: his rank, his empire, his understanding of how the galaxy worked. In his final transmission, before going into hiding, he sent a message to Jake Morrison. You have destroyed everything we built. Our empire brought order. To chaos, law to anarchy. What will replace it? Jake's response was broadcast across the galaxy. Something better. Something chosen freely by those who live under it. Something that recognizes a simple truth you never understood. The only legitimate government is one that serves the people, not one that rules them. The galaxy was free, but freedom was only the beginning. Now came the harder task of building something worth being free for. President Helen Carter stood before the first Galactic Assembly of Free Worlds. The massive space station had been built in neutral territory, designed by representatives from dozens of species working together. It was the first structure in galactic history created by free beings for free beings. Friends and fellow citizens of the galaxy, Helen began, we gather not as conquerors or rulers, but as equals. 2 years ago, most of our worlds were enslaved. Today, we are free, but freedom without purpose is chaos. We must build something better than what we destroyed. The assembly hall was filled with beings from across the galaxy. Zalfani sat beside. Former council species who had joined the rebellion. Humans shared tables with creatures they had never seen before the war. All were united by a single principle, the right to determine their own destiny. Admiral Chris Martin reviewed the defense. Agreements that would protect this new alliance. Unlike the Council's empire, which had been held together by force, the new compact was voluntary. Any world could join, and any world could leave. The only requirement was respect for the freedom of others. The principle is simple, Chris explained. To the assembly, we defend each other not because we must, but because we choose to. Any world that attacks a member of our alliance faces all of us. Any world that wants to leave our alliance is free to do so. This was a revolutionary concept. In galactic politics, for thousands of years, membership in galactic governments had been enforced at gunpoint. The idea that beings could choose their own government was so radical that many species needed time to understand it. Tony Silva had become the human ambassador to the Zalfani worlds. He watched with pride as the species that had once been slaves built their own democratic government. The Zalfani had not simply copied human systems. They had adapted the principles of freedom to fit their own culture and needs. The remarkable thing, Tony reported to Earth, is how quickly they learned. Once they understood that they could choose their own path, they became more creative than we ever imagined. Their government is uniquely Zalfani, but it's built on human principles of individual rights and collective responsibility. The success of the Zalfani inspired other species. Across the galaxy, former slaves were experimenting with self-government. Some worlds chose democracy, others preferred councils of elders, and a few tried completely new systems. The diversity was overwhelming, but all shared the human insight that legitimate government required the consent of the governed. Dr. Kate Thompson had evolved from running a resistance communication network to managing galactic diplomacy. Her quantum communication system now connected not rebels, but free governments working together to solve common problems. Trade disputes, territorial disagreements, resource allocation, Kate explained to her staff. These are good problems to have. They're the problems of free peoples, not slaves. But freedom had not solved every problem. Some former council species could not adapt to self-governance. They had been bred for obedience for so many generations that independence terrified them. These species requested human protection while they slowly learned how to make their own decisions. We can't force them to be free, Jake Morrison explained. To critics who thought humans should abandon species that could not immediately govern themselves. Freedom includes the right to choose how much freedom you can handle. Our job is to protect their right to grow at their own pace. The most surprising development was the number of former council officials who requested asylum in human space. These beings had been raised to believe in absolute authority and rigid hierarchy. The collapse of their empire left them unable to function in the chaotic, voluntary world that humans had created. Former Commander Vex Tai was among them. He lived quietly on a human colony world, trying to understand how the species that had destroyed his empire could be so willing to protect their former enemies. The meeting between Vex Tai and Jake Morrison took place in a simple garden on Earth. Both had aged since their first confrontation, but Jake still carried himself with the confidence that had infuriated Vex Tai years earlier. I have studied your species for 2 years, Vex Tai said. I still do not understand how you knew you could win. Jake smiled. We didn't know we could win. We just knew we couldn't lose. I do not understand the difference. You can kill humans, Jake explained. You can destroy our worlds, scatter us across the galaxy, reduce us to slaves. But you can't make us stop being human. And being human means we don't accept chains, no matter who's holding them. Vex Tai was quiet for a long moment. My species ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. We brought order to chaos, law to anarchy. You brought slavery to free beings, Jake replied without anger. There's a difference between order and oppression. True order comes from beings who choose to work together, not from beings forced to obey. And if they choose not to work together, then they deal with the consequences of their choices. Freedom includes the right to fail, the right to make mistakes, the right to succeed or struggle on your own terms. Vex Tai struggled with these concepts. How do you prevent chaos? How do you stop wars between free worlds? You don't prevent them, Jake said. You manage them. Free beings can disagree, even fight, without destroying each other. The key is making sure the fights are fair and the consequences are proportional. As if to prove his point, Jake showed Vex Tai news reports from the Galactic Assembly. 2 worlds were in a heated dispute over mining rights in an asteroid belt. Instead of going to war, they had agreed to arbitration by neutral parties. Both sides would accept the decision because they had chosen to participate in the process. Your way prevents this conflict from starting, Jake explained. Our way ensures it ends fairly. The new galactic government faced its first major crisis when a group of former council worlds attempted to recreate the old empire. They declared themselves the true council and began attacking independent worlds. The response was swift and decisive. Within days, every member of the Free Worlds Alliance had voted to defend the attacked worlds. The true council found themselves facing not just the targets of their aggression, but the combined forces of hundreds of worlds. The war lasted 3 months. When it ended, the true council had been defeated not by superior weapons, but by superior motivation. Free beings fighting for their rights and the rights of others proved more determined than authoritarian forces fighting to restore a dead empire. President Helen Carter addressed the galaxy after the victory. This war has proven something important. Freedom is not weak, and free beings are not helpless. When we stand together, we are stronger than any tyranny. A galaxy will remain free because we choose to keep it free. Dr. Marcus Webb, now elderly but still working, completed his final project, a memorial to all those who had died in the war for galactic freedom. The memorial was simple, a list of names from every species that had fought for liberty. At the top of the list was Krell, the Zelfane, who had died in the first act of rebellion. At the bottom were the newest names, beings who had died defending freedom against the true council. They died so that others could choose how to live, Marcus said at the memorial's dedication. That's what freedom costs. That's what freedom is worth. The galaxy had learned something that humans had always known. Freedom was not a gift to be given or taken away. It was a choice to be made, a responsibility to be accepted, and a legacy to be protected. The Galactic Enforcement Council had ruled through fear for 1,000 years. The Free Worlds Alliance would endure through choice for as long as beings valued the right to determine their own destiny. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had freed it. And in doing so, they had given every species the most precious gift imaginable, the right to be themselves, to choose their own path, and to build their own future among the stars. The galaxy was finally home to free beings. And free beings, as humans had always known, were capable of anything.